Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre, and with me today in this virtual studio, oh my God, we're in virtual reality here. Joe Yardley, hello.
Hello.
Hi, are you okay?
I'm fine. How are you?
Right, I'm good, but you haven't been on the show for a long time.
Yeah, well, I don't know why.
Yeah, because I didn't invite you. No.
Exactly. You were too drunk. You forgot to call me.
Right. I was like, no. But today on the show, virtual reality in Deutschland, VR Deutschland, Part 3 with Sara Lisa Vogel from the VR Nerds.
Shouldn't there be VR?
That is a good question, Joe. And, I interviewed Sara for about an hour, and that question didn't cross my mind.
TV in German is one of the ugliest words I've ever heard. TV.
That's right, TV.
Hallo, Opa, können wir mal TV angucken?
Geben Sie mir die TV-Remote, aber schnell.
Remote?
Fernbedienung. Okay, well.
No.
Now let's get back on track. As a matter of fact, in the news in Germany, they actually do talk about VR. So really, I'm serious. Like the first time I heard a news report on VR on German television, and people were talking like VR, and I was like thinking, what is VR? And
that's the way it should be. All this Anglo invasion of German language, etc.
No, I mean, in general, I agree with you. I think it's sometimes a very pseudo-hip way of, when Germans kind of throw in some, like, what they perceive as cool English words. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is really embarrassing. But, computer, why don't you say computer? And in Germany, sometimes they say Rechner.
Well,
Right?
That's just stupid.
Don't the Dutch say that, too?
I don't think so. I think by the time computers reached Holland, we thought we couldn't be bothered to think of a Dutch name for it.
That's right, yeah. No, I think that is reasonable.
Because, calculator is not the right word to describe a computer. I'm sorry, Germany, but that's just silly.
But that's what a computer is supposed to do. It's supposed to calculate and not play games or things like that.
But it's evolved. Just like today, VR is only headsets. We know that now.
Why? You live in the 20s. Actually, there's someone on Facebook that I need to introduce to you. She says she's going to move to the 20s because she can't take the post-Trump world anymore. And I said, well, there is a world for you. It's all laid out for you.
Yeah, well, there's a few things about the 1920s she may also quite find difficult to live with. But
now we're at the topic, and dear listener, all the drill. You know that you need to support us if you appreciate this show. You don't need to, but I know you want to, and you know how. So let's not waste time with the plugs. At the end, we have the sponsors as per usual. But last week I said I want to kind of shift a little bit this podcast to include, at least on a weekly basis, the political dimensions of this shift in the U.S. and possibly in the world, and combine that with technology. We had Aral Balkan on last week, who is a deep thinker in that space, and I think we owe it to ourselves to kind of think critically about the applications of VR in a post-Trump world. As a matter of fact, I'm going to link on the blog Harry Shearer, who was, of course, with Spinal Tap and is a voice on The Simpsons, has a hilarious Trump-Obama bit that he did on his podcast, and they put that into they made an animation out of it almost instantly with real-time facial tracking. This will be doable in VR in very short order. It cuts both ways. VR can be used for very good, but it can also be used for propaganda. I mean, I guess my long-winded question to you, if the Nazis had VR as a propaganda tool, what would they have done with it?
Well, they used television before anyone else. The first official television broadcasts anywhere in the world that went to actual television sets in people's homes were broadcast by the Nazis. And if alien intelligent beings outside on different planets start receiving those broadcasts, because that's what happens when broadcaster gets sent into space. If they one day receive the first broadcast from Earth, it's a lovely young lady saying "Hi, Hitler," because That's going to be interesting to explain.
Oh, God.
The positive thing is that we've also got viewers who generally are becoming more and more critical. 100 years ago, people ran for their lives when they saw a train on a cinema screen come towards them. Today, you can have someone live on television showing you that something is exploding, and there will be thousands of people on YouTube saying it's a conspiracy.
And I'm going to link to a really great older episode of my favorite radio show On the Media, where they talk about the psychology of conspiracy theorists, because a good friend of mine turns out he's a complete conspiracy theorist. And instead of really kind of looking at the factual history of 9/11, he has spent hours and if not days going through YouTube and has created sort of a chart based on all this conspiracy information that 9/11 was an inside job.
And of course, it is just very difficult to believe that something happened. For instance, there are still millions of people who think that Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, but that may be true. See,
no,
but,
it's not.
Okay. No, but you're making a good point.
People watch, they watch news, they watch a story, and they can watch it on the internet. They read about JFK, but up to date, they watch very grain, dodgy, handheld mobile phone footage of something from a distance, and they immediately come to a conclusion. They immediately decide, oh, that was unlawful killing, or oh, that was a conspiracy, because there is something they don't get about it, they don't quite understand, or because they haven't seen all the sides. It is a very interesting era, because we've got so many cynical viewers out there, which can be good. People shouldn't automatically blindly trust everything they see in the media. But, there's a balance. And when they go to the other side, it's aluminium foil hat time.
The path from one to the other is very fluid. Hey, what happened to this show? I was going to ask you. We're 10 minutes in. Actually, I wanted to give you the courtesy of asking you if you would be fine to kind of expand a little bit the scope of the show. As we started with SL, then we included VR, then we included digital culture as a whole, and now we're including a little bit politics. But I guess we're fine because we're having a conspiracy. That's right. So,
JFK was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. Sorry.
Listeners, I hope you're enjoying this show. This is a special show because it's Thanksgiving in the U.S., so we go a little bit off format. I don't know what the format is anyway. And don't worry, Sara Lisa Vogel from VR Nerds.
VR.
We are the children. I don't know where. Anyway, she will come on in just a few minutes. And it's a great interview. And Lucid Trips, her game is awesome. And she's building the VR base in Amsterdam, right around the corner from you, and one in Berlin, where you can hang out and you have a green screen and all that. But it's not for 90-year-old people from Berlin, Joe. So forget it.
Never mind then. Quick
anecdote, because we're talking about JFK. When I was in terrestrial radio in California, I had my job was to engage the locals, and I had 3 hours to give away basically per week for show concepts. So we put the word out. If you have a show concept that has to do with local culture or politics, give us a call, come in, send an email, and then we're going to talk about it, and we're going to give you some training, and then you can have basically a show, right? Nobody showed up. It was kind of a disengaged little beach town, to be honest with you. But nobody showed up except for one guy, Joe, and you know what show he proposed?
What? Conspiracy theory.
But only about JFK, not even like the whole conspiracy theory world. He was only going to be focused on JFK. And I said, okay, so how much time do you need? Because I only have, usually a show is 1 hour. And then he said, well, wait a minute. On your ad, you said you have 3 hours per week. And I go, what? You want 3 hours to talk about JFK per week? Yes.
But that's not enough.
That's not
exactly.
enough. All right.
Yeah.
So
I love conspiracy theories, but mostly because I have quite a few friends who are technically, ballistics experts and all that sort of nonsense.
Yeah.
And, I had a course in analyzing skeletons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I just love it, poking holes in all their stories.
No, it's fascinating. The thing is that a lot of stuff turned out to be actually true. I mean,
Well, the main thing about conspiracies is that there usually is a conspiracy, but it's not the one they are looking for. For instance, there are lots of conspiracies surrounding JFK because there were all these guys who were trying to hide that they messed up. You know, that they arrested someone who was innocent, or that they made a few plans that made everything fall apart. And there are loads of bureaucrats there who made mistakes during the day, after the day, and that they're trying to hide that, save their.
But also when we're talking about and we got to change topics, because I see people, oh, come on, please talk about Second Life, and we will.
Christmas is coming.
There is quite a lot of foreign meddling when we talk about the United States and the CIA from the very inception, from the beginning days of the CIA. There's a lot of foreign meddling, and my own father-in-law.
Oh, the British have been doing that since Queen Elizabeth.
That's right. I'm sorry, I didn't want to give the CIA too much credit. The Dulles brothers, they just stole all the
Romans did it as well.
Yes. All right. So. To end this discussion, do you have more Nazis in 1920s Berlin now than before Trump's election, or is it kind of the same ratio?
No, it's sort of...
Because you were tweeting about this, but you did that before too. I mean, there's always somebody shows up, right? Or
yeah, every now and then someone runs around with an Adolf Hitler avatar. I'm not quite sure where they get that.
Where do they get those?
I know. I have to go and try and figure out. Someone's making and selling them, and it's against a toss. But they're not that many. There used to be quite a few. When we started, but that's just slowed down, really.
They haven't been emboldened by the election.
Maybe all the Nazis are waiting for Sansa.
Yeah, that's right. They're waiting for Sansa because the fidelity of Second Life is just not high enough to recreate Adolf just yet. And I'm going to link to a tweet. I mean, Second Lie, people know him, and Second Lie is pretty darn funny. And he tweeted something like, if you meet someone in world and say to them, is that your alt, right? You might get in trouble with the administration in the near future.
I don't get it.
I'm not going to explain it because the alt-right is the...
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, so the US, they refer to this new movement as the alt-right.
America's very far away from where I am.
I know. Sometimes I forget. I think I always kind of equate America with the world as a whole.
Yes, we know you all think everyone cares about what happens there.
Thanksgiving and the slaughter of the Native Americans.
Yeah, I had some. I think was it the guy, the chief of Apple on Twitter was just wishing happy Thanksgiving to everyone at Apple and every customer around the world. And I was going, what?
Yeah, that's kind of insane.
Does he not realize that nobody anywhere except in America is celebrating this?
Jesus Christ. All right, so we have time for, before we go to Sarah's interview, we only have time for one big Second Life related news. What is happening in Second Life? Nothing?
Primsmas. I wish you a Merry Primsmas.
Oh, God.
We're getting prims. Loads.
That's a good deal, huh?
Oh, it's so good. I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, this is one of those things that when Linalab does it, everyone gets excited. Pretty much everyone. This is going to change things. I'm going to be able to not only give loads of extra prims to every tenant in Berlin, but I'm also going to be able to rent a few out. That means my income is going to go up, which means the weight on my shoulder of making sure that a sim pays for itself and things like that is going to be lighter. But it also means that I can make my Sims prettier by rezzing lots of little nice details.
That is a big deal. I just want to say that I'm working on a video that's coming out before Christmas about Death Row Designs. I was in Belgium, met with Jamie Hancroft and her sister Eowyn Swords, who run Death Row Designs. It's going to be a great story of, again, the same theme as always, digital empowerment, without the need of some VR hardware that doesn't really work.
Only today.
No, it's funny because I assume that a lot of the Sara Lisa Vogel from VR Nerds and Lucid Trips, which is really an interesting game. It's a VR game where you propel yourself forward with your arms in sort of a pulling fashion. You propel yourself forward through really kind of trippy worlds. I'm assuming that we have some listeners who are fans of hers and her endeavors, and these people are probably half our age. You know, youth is a beautiful thing unless you don't know the history of Second Life.
Yeah, that's going to be a struggle that we're going to have for quite some time.
We have to keep repeating. We have to sound like old people who are grumpy. That
we are exactly like our grandparents. Imagine this. It is the 1950s. You are, let's say you're an elderly person, and your children are saying, hey, we're going to do rock and roll, and we are the first young generation who's going to rebel against the system, and we're going to be dancing wildly, and we're going to be crazy, and we're not going to listen to the rules, etc., etc. And all you are thinking is, oh, I remember the 20s when we did just that, except with more drugs. Or imagine if you're a feminist in 1960s burning your bra, and your grandmother just thinks, I remember when we threw away an entire bloody corset, you amateurs.
God, I'm depressed now, and I was in a good mood.
You're welcome.
Let's go to the interview with Sara-Lisa Vogel. She's with the Lucid Trips and the VR Nerds, together with Nico Ute, Sebastian Hinz. They are putting this game out. The game is on Steam Early Access. By the way, High Fidelity is on Steam Early Access. I don't know if I talked about this last time. We're going to link to it. High Fidelity already had their first griefer.
That's a landmark moment. That means you're grown up.
It's a landmark moment, and it was kind of not surprising. And it was Britbong. Britbong, you know Britbong. He's funny at times.
Yeah, and rude.
He's somewhat rude. Yeah, I guess.
And vulgar and obscene.
I guess if you're a troll, you kind of got to be rude.
Well, it's 2016. Everyone's rude.
No, I gotta forgive. The reason why I forgive Britbong is because he's actually also a fan of mine, and he had some good words for me. So that's the kind of hypocrite I am. It's like it's like Donald Trump. He gets really upset at someone, and then you say, "Hey, I take it back that you have small hands," and he goes, "Oh, you're a good man." Sara-Lisa Vogel, here she is, and we're gonna add some more info at the end of the interview and link to it. She is also putting together the VR base in Amsterdam, which I think is ready to go. You can rent space there. There's a green screen studio. You can hang out with other people. And they're putting something like this together in Berlin. I think the model for this is Upload VR in San Francisco. But I might be wrong. So let's see what she has to say. And at the end of the interview, we're going to talk a little bit more about Sansar. Here's Sara-Lisa Vogel.
I started with VR with the DK1, so we ordered the DK1 at some point. I got to see it at my studies at my university, College of Communication Arts and Interactive Media. So I did a few students projects and showed them in VR, for example, an infographic, which I actually did the concept for in Cinema 4D, and then just made it accessible through the DK2 and the Leap Motion, and I experimented back and forth with a lot of different stuff. So I spent the first 3 years in VR at the VR Nerds Collective in Hamburg, and just recently moved to Berlin to start the VR base there. So as I discovered virtual reality as a medium where I can make my 3D art accessible in a whole different way, that was actually the part that caught my interest. So from that point on, where I could actually slip into the worlds I built in a 3D engine through VR, that kind of opened my eyes for the potentials of virtual reality.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in here because what is so fascinating to me and a lot of people who have been active in Second Life, and especially artists who have done immersive art for a long time, we don't understand how all of a sudden virtual reality is so accepted and cool. And I think I said this on the podcast before, like I've been talking with families and friends about, they always ask me, so what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm working on this documentary about people who make immersive art in Second Life. And then people start rolling their eyes like, oh my God, virtual world, why don't you go outside and smell the flowers? And now it's these same people within my circle of friends. One guy came to me and said, hey, you got to check out this Samsung Gear VR thing that you can pop on your head. And I go, dude, didn't you just tell me a year ago to go outside and smell the flowers, and now you're telling me to pop something on my head to go in another world? So how you're quite a bit younger than I am, so I'm asking you, this seems to be like really hip and accepted in your generation. Why?
Yeah, I guess so. So I don't know, when I was younger, I read like all these books like Snow Crash and Ready Player One and all that stuff. So that was pretty cool because it was just like, it was futuristic, but it was also kind of like the technology we got was kind of the technology that was always shown in sci-fi movies from back then. And so it was kind of like, yeah, the hoverboard came back and it's all like this kind of retro style, but we can now really do this. And I think the real hype and the awareness from the general audience came with the DK1, like with this Kickstarter campaign and also with Facebook buying Oculus.
But still, like, do you feel like this is only within your circle of geeky friends, or how come it is, like, for example, before the iPhone came out, it was not really kind of socially acceptable that people would stare onto their phone like in a public space. And now people are speculating, when is it going to happen when people on the subway will basically have goggles on? So my question is still like, what do you think is the reason why this is sort of seems to be really kind of accepted and kind of a cool, even like a fashion accessory?
But as I said, like it's in my perspective, it's the science fiction films that are super cool, and that the technology that is used in there and was just imagined is actually here right now, and it's cool and it's functioning.
So there's nobody in your family that says you should go outside and smell the flowers. Well, you have a pretty easy going, then you just show them a picture of you skiing or something.
Everyone, also my friends, are telling me like, oh my God, you and your VR stuff, like especially like 3 years back. It was even, it was much more the case, but still, of course, my family is telling me like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're not social at all. Also, I'm DJing in VR, and that's like a super weird experience to DJ in VR because you cannot react to your audience at all. All that unsocialness that is coming up, like I deal a lot with the questions around being social, or how to perceive your reality when you're in VR, or when you're just in your real life, in your everyday life. So,
because you're bringing this up, I want to jump on this real quick. How is that DJ in VR experience? Is there an audience? What world are you in? And that leads me then further down the line. What is the metaverse and all this kind of stuff? But right now, where are you DJing, and how do you connect to your audience?
So I'm using the Wave VR, which is a software that friends of mine are developing. And so I mostly play that at events. Like I do gigs there where a real audience is in the room, but I'm in VR. So they also have the option to have a server running and have people join in with Gear VRs, but that is actually a bit complicated still at the moment because it's a very early prototype. The thing with DJing in VR, so using the software to make music, is already a pretty cool thing.
So we got to be clear, you're actually using the software to create the music on the fly.
I'm taking my tracks, so I have them put my tracks into a build, and then I can
you can process the music with effects.
Put your own style to the music, because you can really you can use these effects in a very, very intuitive way. So you have two cubes on both sides of you, and the effects are kind of in the axis of your room. So you can move through these boxes and have like a very intuitive way of playing with these effects, very creatively affecting your music.
Before we go to Lucid Trips, which is being launched a few days after this podcast comes out, I want to ask you, because the series of podcasts is also subtitled VR in Germany. I am in Germany right now, and I wouldn't say that the awareness is less than in the US, because I think the hype around VR is also concentrated in the US, of course, in Silicon Valley and in LA. But I want to get your sense. Do you feel, because you travel a lot, do you feel that in Germany the awareness and the acceptance is different? Or how does it differ? The weirdest thing that I saw was in Munich, a store that sells kitchens and bathrooms. They have big billboards. I forgot the name of the store, but they had a Zeiss One, actually. The guy like, put your own kitchen together in VR. So that was really strange. And actually, the Munich internet provider, they have in the subway, you can check out their super fast internet with a Gear VR. So it's being used for these marketing purposes, but there's obviously no comparison to the madness when you go to a conference in San Francisco, or you go to LA, or you speak to people who work in this industry. What's your take on VR in Germany? Is it here? Is it being greeted with ich weiß nicht, was soll ich mit dem Schmerz?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's got to do also with the German mentality, how VR is faced here. So I think the Germans, they don't take as much risks as Americans do, I guess. And so they're much more secure and look at something a bit longer before they really bet on it, I guess. And so I think that's why it's a bit more laid back here and a bit more used in, as you said, commercial purposes and for companies to market their product, like that kind of stuff. Also, like, there's a growing scene and also a startup scene which are betting on the medium to succeed, but still, yeah, as the US is very much accelerated by investors' money, which is much more accessible and easily accessible and much more common. Americans are used to take like make it or break it, and no one judges you if you do something wrong. So nevertheless, I guess in Germany we have a lot of very sophisticatedly working people. So I would also say there are a lot of perfectionists in this country, also high educated engineers. And so I think there are a lot of high quality VR experiences coming from Germany. So I don't want to say that doesn't exist in the US, but I think German projects are mostly a bit more finished when they come on the market than the ones that come from the US.
That's a good assessment. But now we're talking about business and advertising, but you are also interested in art and such. Now, what's your take on the acceptance of art? And, you know, this could be, broadly speaking, like digital art. You know, that there might be people who dismiss digital art as a whole. They go like, you know, if you don't take a pencil and you sharpen that pencil yourself and draw on a piece of paper, that kind of appears. So what's your take on the situation now and where it could go with the acceptance of digital immersive art?
Yeah, well, I think art is a very important part. VR is that very, very powerful medium where you can look at art as if you were in a museum or in a room that is really created to display that art, but still it can be super surreal what art is also in some cases, and it can be, you can make things happen that you would never be able to make happen in the real world. And so I think especially for art, VR is very important, and I guess also the awareness for that is very much there. So I was recently at DevLab. It was a kind of a workshop weekend from Kaleidoscope and Oculus. They invited 28 developers. And
explain real quick, Kaleidoscope, they're also touring with experiences into major cities, and then you kind of buy a ticket and you go in there, and they have a whole bunch of headsets, sort of a happening / museum on the road, I guess.
They have a world tour or North America tour, and they take VR experiences on tour to expose them. So they're working together with publishers and platforms and that stuff. And they also support indie devs. So they have cooperations with a lot of other companies. And they partnered up with Oculus to get new experiences started, especially RT experiences. So there were a lot of filmmakers, artists, dancers, even a magician. Like, it was very diverse. It was very much focused on experiences, definitely not on games. So I actually come more from this gaming scene, I would say. It makes a lot of sense to push art in VR because it's it's just another way of consuming it, and it makes so much more sense to consume especially three-dimensional art in VR than on a 2D screen.
Yeah, we've done that in Second Life for over a decade. I'm old. But now, you said consuming. How about, because now we're leading towards lucid trips, and it's all nice that you can see what other people do. For me personally, it's most exciting when sort of these walls fall by the wayside and everybody can be at the table. What is VR doing in regards to leveling the playing field and empowering people to be more than just sort of consuming what a bunch of others that have the tools give them?
There are a lot of tools created that enable people to create in VR. I mean, that's a thing at the moment, because Tilt Brush is, of course, a very good example for that. So, I mean, Tilt Brush is amazing, as well as Medium, or also the edited tools from Unity or Unreal that enable you to really see what you're doing right away and create whole new things. I mean, there are a lot of Tilt Brush artists out there that just got into being a 3D artist through Tilt Brush because it's so much more accessible and it's so much more intuitive.
This is my token question that I ask everyone. Right now, the premium headsets are, okay, I'm not counting PlayStation or the Microsoft stuff that's announced, but the premium headsets are around at least $800. When I compare this to Second Life, a virtual world that has empowered millions to actually make a living in virtual reality, right now it requires a relatively high investment to even get started as sort of a hobby. And I know that the answer is always, and I can read your mind, you're going to say, oh, the price will come down. It's a little bit of an elitist game right now because you need to have access to these kind of higher end machines. I mean, obviously, it's not only the headset; it's also the computer and all related things.
Yeah, true. That's maybe also this gap of disappointment that is coming up every now and then, which we will experience. And but yeah, of course, it's pretty expensive. But for me, VR the technology is there where you can rely on it, where it makes things happen, where it can be used, and it will develop further. So yeah, I just gotta say this. On the same time, so I think VR won't die this time again. So the technology is too good that it breaks down again.
Right. So you're referring to, obviously, some people have said VR is the type of technology. I don't know who said that. Maybe Tony did. The VR is the technology that every 30 years is about 5 years away from total adoption. But so I'm rephrasing you, and I tend to agree with you that right now the hardware is really solid, so it's not like 20 kilos on your head. It's still a little bit uncomfortable, and that actually leads me to your experiment. If you could summarize this experiment, where you guys, actually your partner, your friend, your colleague, I forgot his name, you tell me.
Thorsten Wiedemann, I did the first disconnected performance, a 48-hour VR trip, where I guided Thorsten Wiedemann as a VR Now through virtual worlds. Yeah, so I was the VR shaman taking care of him.
Hold on, he was in VR for how long?
48 hours.
Okay, in 48 hours he had a headset on, and he had I guess a couch, sofa, whatever. Tell me how that was. Was he going slightly mad? And a related question: what do you mean by virtual worlds? Because I gotta tell you that although a lot of that stuff is really amazing, to me it's not a virtual world. It's not populated by other people like SL or other places where there is hundreds and thousands of people.
Yeah, so what we actually did was just that we decided on we wanted to test or to just experience how would it be if you would be for that long time in a headset. Like, is the technology really that far? Like, where will we be in 20 years? So the technology at the moment is not really made for being that long in VR, but we just imagined it and put it into a surrounding, like how would it be in 20 years from now, and what would people do, like would they spend that long time in there, and would it be possible? And we just wanted to prove like this can definitely be a thing. So we did set up the space. So we worked with the Game Science Center, which made it possible to have us there as a kind of exhibit, so that also people came by and we met up with other ones.
Wait a minute, let me describe it. People have a video, they can look at it. But so Thorsten was there with a headset, and you're saying people could actually visit him. Isn't that super awkward? He can't see them. He's not allowed to take off the headset. And then people come in like, hey, how are you doing? How did he react to that?
And it was very supportive for him, actually, because it is a really, really long time. And so it was kind of people, they had interest in what we were doing, because back then it was like early Vive dev kit, and technology was super new, and people were just curious, like what's happening there. We also had the live stream, and so people really took part in what we did. And I curated this trip for him. So I had 3 times a day. We had times when we were sitting together on a table in a kitchen experience from Samuli, and we sat there and had the real life table at the spot of the virtual table, and we were experimenting with that. And also he was in a lot of experiences. Back then the experiences were less than they're now.
You say this in the video. There was or he says it, that probably the hardest thing is the lack of experiences, and after a while it gets pretty boring pretty fast.
Yeah, that is true. And so we had a funny coincidence, because now with Lucid Trips we're a bit further in development and got a bit more islands, and we just recently had a disconnected performance at Mutec Mexico when we were both in Mexico, and he was in Lucid Trips for 8 hours and he didn't feel bored at all. So kind of when the terrain is big enough and you got something to do. So we did set up challenges at this asynchronous multiplayer, which we will release with the early access version. So he could take the challenges and look for the egg someone else hide it for him. So he really had something to do, and something that kept him exploring these surreal surroundings. So I think as the VR experiences get further developed, there will be totally room for spending a lot of time in different surroundings. So also VR chat helped us a lot. So we were a lot in VR chat, also in Altspace sometimes, but VR chat, like the people there built him his own avatar, and they rebuilt the room we were in VR chat, and so we could hang out, travel through the metaverse. And yeah.
What is your definition of the metaverse? What is the metaverse?
I think a lot of VR chat when I gotta think of the metaverse, because I know the metaverse from Snow Crash, and as it's described there, it's kind of this planet, which we also have in Lucid Trips, but more like, with all these different houses or rooms. But I think I see it more as it's shown in VR space, that you actually just get this memory of different rooms, and then you can travel to them through these time holes which open up when you travel to another room, and they're just like existing simultaneously, but you can travel through them, and you're always in another world. So
how about, could you imagine a persistent universe where people actually make their own worlds and collaboratively build them, whatever they are? They could rebuild entire cities and then actually live in places within that world, friends visiting them, going on bike rides, on horseback riding, and basically living sort of a parallel life in a different universe regardless of their physical location.
I guess that could totally be in some time. Why not? It was also really shocking when we first saw like people have fake personalities on social platforms. So why shouldn't people want to live another life in another virtual world?
Isn't fake a little bit of a negative word? Is somebody fake when somebody creates an avatar that he or she feels like that avatar reflects my inner personality even more than my physical self?
Yeah, could totally be. Maybe, what is the better word? Parallel identities.
Yeah. Fake is a word that it's hard for Germans would translate that, but the connotations are very negative in English. It's really like you sort of like you're intentionally deceiving someone. So I'm sure, I hope that that's not what you mean when you go into a world and you invent positively a persona, a personality, and via your avatar, and you express yourself. That's what people always tell me when I interview them for the documentaries, is they invariably say, this avatar expresses how I feel inside, or it's the essence, or it's my soul, or whatever. So that kind of creativity.
Yeah, that's really cool. Then we don't call it fake, we call it maybe fashion.
Let's talk about Lucid Trips, which is coming out on Steam. It's really fascinating. So this is very creative, but can you explain what it is? Is it a game, or is it actually a world? Yeah,
so Lucid Trips is a experience where you slip into the bodiless consciousness, and you get two ghost-like arms that enable you to move around. So it's a very experimental locomotion method is the foundation of the game. So you move around in this pretty intuitive way, only using your hands in a very low gravity situation. At the moment, explore this world and hide and seek artifacts in there. So, as we said, we get this little creation tool which we're playing around with, but it's not finally discussed what we will do with that. So we also might include the players in our early access phase to give us input what they might want to do with it. And so that's a pretty open stadium still, but yeah, this hide and seek is taking place in a asynchronous multiplayer surrounding. So you can set up a challenge. Because
we're on the radio, you need to describe, how does it look? Where do I hop through with my arms, with my disembodied body? And why don't I have a body? Okay, I understand why. But what am I traveling through?
So you travel through a very, I would say, magical, trippy, dreamlike surrounding. So it's inspired by lucid dreams. Very much a locomotion method, but of course also the environment is it's very dreamy. It's glowing. There's a lot of particles in there. It's very abstract, and we get art pieces in the surroundings. So on every island, there's another art piece from another artist, and these are either 3D scanned or digitally created art pieces, but all three-dimensional. So they are much more high poly, so they're completely high poly and textured and all that stuff. Various surrounding is very low poly.
The islands, you guys create those islands, and then the art pieces are put into those islands.
Oh yeah, we put the art pieces in there. So we work with the artists together to put them in there. And so we create the terrains, and we really want to have it that handmade, so there's nothing procedural or anything in there. So it's really self-built, so we really want to have the user experience that handmade thing. And also the treasures which are hidden from another person, and you can always find these treasures by the traces that other people leave. So when people are thrusting in the air and or touching the ground, they always leave traces in the surrounding. So you can kind of leave that challenge for other people that other people can take.
So these things are persistent within those worlds. When people go in there, these traces, they stay there.
Oh, it's only if you take a challenge. So if you set up a challenge, you leave the traces while hiding the treasures, and if then you save it, you say, okay, now it's done, you upload it, you save it, and then someone else can take the challenge, and he will come into that world, like he will see the traces between the hidden treasures and can therefore find them a bit easier.
Okay, we're running out of time, and so this is coming up on Steam on the 29th. You can get, it's an early access deal. Guys, check it out. Lucid Trips, based on lucid dreams, which is basically a dream where you're aware of that you're dreaming, and it looks really, really cool. So you move with your commotion. I guess it's a standing game. It makes sense.
Yeah, standing or sitting, just front facing. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier something about VR Berlin, and we went all over the place. What did I forget to ask you? What is important when we talk about VR in Germany, the VR scene?
Yeah, we really want to get this VR scene together here and bound up in the VR-based Berlin, which we're just like at the moment putting together and partnering with a lot of as well as startups, as individuals, as companies, hardware and software companies, to build this kind of a hub, kind of a curated incubator that enables people, startups as individuals, to get further with their projects, to accelerate them, basically.
Awesome. We'll link to all this information on the blog. I have a fabulous idea in closing. VR, hear me out. This is my 12-second elevator pitch. VR makes it unnecessary to have a certain physical location. How about connecting within the metaverse, incorporate people even in the flyover Bundesländer? Just saying, why does it always have to be, reinforcing certain hubs that I have nothing against, but to me, it somehow devaluates people who don't happen to live there.
Oh yeah, that is totally true, but we can kind of connect face to face and help each other a lot when we're there at the same time. So we can still communicate in another way. We really want to push VR and our projects further and do that as much as we can. And therefore, maybe the city is also not that important. And so Berlin is a good spot. So it's still pretty cheap. Food is pretty cheap. Living is pretty cheap. And it's a super nice and creative, arty city.
So that was Sara Lisa Vogel. We're linking to Lucid Trips. Check it out on Steam Early Access. Check out VR Nerds. And if you're in Amsterdam or in Berlin, check out the VR base. I applaud Sara and her generation. It's different this time. It makes no sense to always kind of compare the Second Life hype with the VR hype. It's a lot bigger and it's probably here to stay. But again, proceed with caution, proceed with humility. I would advise. Now, Joe, you have been looking at, because talking about early access on Steam, and we mentioned that High Fidelity is there. Steam, Sansar, of course, is not Steam. Jesus Christ. Sansar is still very closed, very testing in the alpha stage. But High Fidelity, have they gotten any reviews? I mean...
So far, only 25. And of those 25, 19 are positive. So generally, people are quite excited.
Wow. Is there not like something where they say, like, I don't know, what's the point of this game?
Well, there are 6 negative ones. Let me see if I can...
Wait a minute. Don't read them to me. I'm going to tell you what it is. This game sucks, right? Something like that, maybe?
Long-time user of Second Life, I want this to be amazing. High Fidelity is around since 2013 and still is full of bugs and crashes. Sadly, with my Vive, it is impossible at this point to get past the tutorial area. I will change my review when things are more in line with expectations.
That is pretty good though, because this is someone with perspective, a long-time Second Life user. I have to say,
you're gonna love this one.
wait. In High Fidelity's defense, I gotta say that because he mentions the tutorials, and I was in just last week, the tutorial area is actually pretty good. I mean, if you have a Vive with controllers or Oculus with touch, you can interact and really kind of test that. You can light a fuse and you can kind of blow up little firecrackers. You have to move stuff in other places, and then you kind of get like, congratulations, that works. And so you move on. This is the type of tutorial with interactivity that, of course, with Second Life, it wouldn't matter because you don't have controllers or anything. But the tutorial is well done. Okay, next review.
And quite positive, I have to say, that Philip Roaster himself commented and offered to help out.
Oh, really?
So that's quite good.
He's hands-on.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, this one is good. It's a trash game. 0 out of 10 points. Full of angry 40-year-old men in a midlife crisis. Whoever decided to bring and allow this type of garbage into Steam should be fired. This kind of content isn't even related to Steam, and it's approved. This is the same range as Second Life. Absolute garbage.
Wait a minute. I think I need to reply to this guy, because people in midlife crisis, they are still in Second Life. They're not in High Fidelity.
Yeah, it's too modern, High Fidelity.
Exactly. People go like, what? People too young in High Fidelity. I'm going to stay right here. Any other reviews?
But generally, well, there's another one that says, I've tried so hard to get this working correctly, just can't. So it's mostly technical issues. And there's Brit Bong, but he put an entire video up, so you can check that one out. It's rude and obnoxious and cringeworthy experience full of depressed middle-aged people who will ban you to feel a little bit of pleasure in their sad lives. I thought that sounds like me.
Wait, that's what Brit Bong said?
Yeah. Some 40-year-old demanded I stop walking into him, and Steam ID and IP blocked me from the main social hub. It means there's no point even starting up because there's only 4 active people at all times.
You know what's funny? And we're going to link to Britbong's video. It's funny that they all say 40-year-olds as if 40 is old. That leads me to believe that these people are teenagers, because only when you're below 20 do you think 40 is old. Well,
if I've seen Britbong's videos, and I would sort of guess that he's 12.
Nah, he okay for a 12-year-old. He has quite a range. I think he's 15.
Swear words.
His vocabulary is amazing. Come on.
Okay, 13 then.
Very gifted 13-year-old. All right, guys. I mean, come over to High Fidelity and check it out.
But again, there are 25 reviews and 19 are positive. So that is, this is the future of social VR. Someone says here, pretty interesting concept. I think this has a lot of potential. Was very surprised. It's a must-have for the VR folks. So it's basically Garrett's Mod meets Second Life.
Oh,
so this is, there's quite a few, mostly enthusiastic. So make sure you read those as well.
Right. I wonder how much Philip. I really wonder if Philip Rosedale paid for these positive reviews out of his own pocket, or if that's on the books. Sorry.
Well, I don't. I'm a hardcore Steam user, of course, being one of those gamers.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know any of these people, so I can't really be for sure. But 15. There's one who's got 108 products on his account. He's on 315. This is how many games these people have. So
okay.
These are people who have been gaming a long time.
That is interesting, though. That is really interesting, because I really did think that when it was announced that High Fidelity was going to go on Steam, that there would be a much larger backlash. So this suggests, though, that hardcore gamers kind of do like it, despite, I would say, the same issues that Second Life has, which is that for gamers who are so used to a very specific goal, High Fidelity has no goal either.
But it has VR.
That's right.
Headsets, so
that's going to distract them ADHD gamers for 5 minutes.
Yeah, but if you've got a headset and you've got those controllers, being in a room with a ball is going to be fun.
Right.
Being in Second Life in a room with a ball is not going to be fun. So it is extra. So they've got enough to hang around, to try some things, to explore a little bit, and that's perhaps enough for them to discover or realize the potential.
All right. Well, good luck. Good luck to High Fidelity. I wonder what's going on in Sansar. Who knows? And if I would know, I couldn't talk about it because I would be dead. Yeah,
Ebbes, he can do taekwondo.
Ebbe doesn't fool around. It's rumored that every Sansar alpha tester has sort of a little sort of explosive chip had implanted in their sort of main artery, and then Ebbe, if Ebbe hears that they talk about it and violate the NDA, he just pushes a button and then people explode, basically.
Yeah, no, that's not a rumor. That is
like
in
that
fact.
movie Scanners, David Cronenberg. Go ahead.
But even if someone would ask you if you are in Sansar and you think too long, Ebbe push the button.
That's right. If you hesitate longer than 3 seconds, that's a fact.
Drax, are you in Sansar?
Oops, what time is it?
Oh.
That was the end. Yeah. No, you got to be vigilant these days. All right, so that's the end of the show. We'll see you guys next week, or we'll hear from you next week. And I do want to do a live show next week. Hope we're going to do this in Time Portal, get those chairs warmed up. I want to end the show with congratulating Palmer Luckey, who really was very effective with his strategy, obviously. He is the one. People are scratching their heads how Donald Trump got elected. There's a lot of theories, with the Electoral College and all sorts of things.
It's that one billboard.
Exactly. So there is no question in my mind. It's not that Hillary ran a bad campaign or whatnot, or the emails. No. It's that one billboard that Palmer invested $10,000. This kid is smart. He invested in these goggles, and then he invested in his one billboard, and he got everything he wanted.
Except that he's now in hiding.
Right. Have you not contacted him on Facebook? Oh yeah, he unfriended you.
Yes, he unfriended me, but he's. It looks like the people at Facebook and Oculus have told him to stay away from the internet for a while.
They took away their remote control.
Yeah, I think there's a blog somewhere that says where on earth is Palmer Luckey, that keeps trying to find traces of him, and he's nowhere to be found.
There is, and we're gonna link to it. And if you have any leads, if you live down in Orange County, and
have you seen this boy?
All right, okay. Have a great weekend, Joe, and goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Time Portal, SL Artist, Warbug, 01 Heavy Industries Corporation, Extraordinary Fine Magical Goods, Ionic, Maven Homes, Gizzo Creations, Strawberry Sing, Abranimations, Eros Avatars, The Cube Republic, What Next, Landscapes Unlimited, Bay Cities You Know for Kids, Fallen Gods Incorporated, Feroche SL, and Death Row Designs. Contact the show via Skype, Drax Files Avatar, Drax Files, or email radio@draxfiles.com.